that a Timberwolves team would go and try to pursue, which is putting Kevin Durant next to their star young player. Now, how do you make it work? There's a couple different ways. The Minnesota Timberwolves might be the leader of the pack right now when it comes to trading for Kevin Durant. Welcome into another trending edition PHNX Suns mini pod. As always, I am Erik Ruby here on a weekend from my home studio because the Kevin Durant news just does not stop at all. The entire NBA world is waiting to see where KD will be playing for next. And of course, that means rumors are swirling, including from Zach Lowe earlier today saying in the buzz rankings, as far as where Kevin Durant might end up next, he would put Minnesota at number 1, Houston at number 2, and then a gap before other teams like the Miami Heat. Now, this is something that mimics some other reporting that we've seen earlier in the week about the top 3 being Houston and being Minnesota and being Miami. The thing is with Minnesota that's interesting is that there's been this love affair between Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant because you've seen how they've interacted on the court against each other, whether that was during the last postseason run where the Timberwolves eliminated the Suns, him and KD were talking back and forth, or during Team USA, seeing those two interact with each other through the Netflix documentary and then, of course, on the court as well. It does feel like they're kind of kindred spirits, and it does feel like that's the type of thing that a Timberwolves team would go and try to pursue, which is putting Kevin Durant next to their star young player. Now, how do you make it work? There's a couple different ways that you can attack that. You can look at a Julius Randle-centered deal. Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and Mike Conley does make the money work. You'd probably have to include some draft capital in this year's draft and future draft capital if you could scrape that together for Minnesota. Minnesota also has what's widely considered to be the best center on the trade market, at least from a established value perspective. I think Kel'el Ware overall would be the best center prospect for the Suns to get from Miami, but Rudy Gobert is somebody that plays into the style that Jordan Ott and Brian Gregory have said the Suns want to play this upcoming season, which is big and physical, rebounding on offensive and defensive ends. Rudy Gobert, hate him or love him, he does that. And I understand most people hate him. I'm not the biggest fan myself, but he would be the best defensive center the Suns ever had. Probably the best center the Suns ever had, period. DA played well during that finals run, but Rudy Gobert, again, like him or hate him, and again, most people hate him, and I don't blame you. The dude's moonwalking backwards into the Hall of Fame, multi-time defensive player of the year, one of the best defensive centers of the last 20 years, 30 years. I mean, probably one of the best defensive centers of all time. Just obviously a lot other parts of his game are going to be criticized, and rightfully so. When you look at a Kevin Durant trade to Minnesota, it does make sense. Now, it might make sense to loop in a third team here if the Suns don't want Gobert, if the Suns don't want Randle, maybe loop in a Houston Rockets team that has been interested as well. Maybe they want KD Light for giving up a smaller package. Maybe they want Julius Randle. They're not going to want Rudy Gobert, obviously, because of Alperen Şengün and just recently extending Steven Adams to keep him off of the free agent market. But Minnesota is interesting. Now, you're not going to get Naz Reid. You're probably not going to get Jaden McDaniels. Now, Naz Reid is probably going to opt out of a player option and want to sign a new contract. Jaden McDaniels, I don't believe the Timberwolves would trade. If you're going to trade for KD, you most likely want to pair him up with Jaden McDaniels, even though the Suns, I think, should do everything in their power to try to get somebody besides a Julius Randle or a Rudy Gobert from Minnesota if a trade does go down. Maybe a young asset like Rob Dillingham or a Terrence Shannon Jr. Now, I wouldn't say I'm extremely high on either of those prospects' long-term future in the NBA. Rob Dillingham, obviously a former top 10 pick in last year's draft. Minnesota trading with the Spurs to go up and get him, to add him to their already established veteran core, and that just has not worked out for him. Now, he's super, super young, very small, thin point guard as well. Technically could play alongside Devin Booker. There's definitely some defensive concerns there. But if you're the Suns, you most likely want a young guy like Rob Dillingham thrown in there instead of an older player like a Mike Conley, right? You're not in a position where you really want Mike Conley on this team unless it's to mentor somebody, but then you're just admitting that you're tanking and that you're not really trying to win. And that's just a defensive nightmare with Devin Booker and no future prospects as well. What about Houston? What about Miami? Now, Houston, I think, as they extend Steven Adams and they possibly re-sign Fred VanVleet, maybe pick up that option there, they seem like they're leaning a little bit more towards the win now stature of things. And I do wonder if Minnesota being willing to offer a big package might also entice Houston to throw in a Jabari Smith Jr., to throw in a Tari Eason, to throw in a Reed Shepherd, to not be as hesitant to throw in the number 10 pick. And then with Miami, it all comes down to Kel'el Ware. Jake Fisher reporting with Mark Stein that Kel'el Ware is kind of that hinge piece for Miami. Miami can offer Andrew Wiggins, Duncan Robinson, the 20th pick in this year's draft, some other fringe draft capital as well, but it's Kel'el Ware. And for me, if you're making a deal with Miami, it starts and ends with Kel'el Ware. I have to have Kel'el Ware back in a Kevin Durant trade, but I don't blame Miami fans and Miami front office for being hesitant to trade a 7-1 guy that can play the 5 and the 4, shoot threes, block shots, and has a lot of potential and promise after just playing his rookie season. You know, for a Kevin Durant who's near the end of his career, or at least we assume it based off of all relative age expectations. And then there's a team that hasn't been brought up in all of this, and that's the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the San Antonio Spurs, it feels like, are going to try to play a little hardball with the Phoenix Suns. Reports from Jake Fisher say that they are not going to include De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, or the number 2 overall pick, and that the Spurs player assets start with Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and Harrison Barnes, maybe even Jeremy Sohan. Now, the 14th pick also involved there, but if I'm the Suns, I'm playing hardball. If you got Houston and Minnesota and possibly Miami as well who are willing to throw in better deals, I'm not just going to trade Kevin Durant to the Spurs because Kevin Durant wants to go to the Spurs to play with Victor Wembanyama, not just because of the history that these two franchises share, but you also sit in the same Western Conference. And guess what? San Antonio, you've got the assets. You can pay the premium. If you don't want to, you're not going to get him. The reality is there is a bidding war for Kevin Durant right now, and PHNX Suns is keeping you up to date throughout all of it, whether it's from the home studios, from the regular studios, whatever happens, whenever it happens. If Kevin Durant gets traded, we will be going live from PHNX Sports right here for a breaking news live edition podcast on PHNX Suns. You can find that by subscribing to this channel. And then, of course, you can do the other fun stuff, hitting the like button on this video, dropping a comment. What do you think about Minnesota reportedly being the front runner right now to get Kevin Durant? And if you're listening on audio, 5-star reviews go a long way in growing the show. For a post-Kevin Durant era, it's time to bring in some new Suns fans and maybe bring back some that left due to the disappointments of the other teams. But I appreciate you psychos and sickos tapping in with me over a weekend shift. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again very soon. Stay vigilant, keep your eyes out for news, and when something happens, you know where to go.
We all silly like the mayor.